Shokayach, Mr. Kaplan, for the Chizuk. I just want to say that everybody's speaking about Tefillah. David HaMelech says in Tehillim Kuftes, V'ani Tefillah. The question is asked, what does V'ani Tefillah mean? So the Rav just explained it about Ima, how everything was davening. So I heard it repeated from the Satmar Rebbe that says, what does it mean V'ani Tefillah? What is David HaMelech saying? So this is an example that's given. There's two people that come to Gvir to ask for money. One person looks mechubed, comes with a tie, with a jacket. He smells good. He comes, he knocks on the door of the Gvir. He says, gives the whole story, the whole rundown. And then collecting money for yeshivas. The second guy, the Gvir opens up the door, he writes him a check right away. Satmar Rebbe says, that's David HaMelech. I need tefillah. Kol tefillah. It's like what Mr. Kaplan just said about Ima, she was really kol tefillah. Sometimes we know even words. We just kol tefillah. Our next speaker is also someone that speaks about tefillah a lot and has a lot to do with tefillah. Speaks in many different places in the world, as mechazek many people in different seminaries, in different yeshivas, and he was mechaved us to come here tonight. I want to call up a missile, Chavod.
Very humbled and very honored to have the chus to give a hesped for Rebbitzen Machlis. To be honest with you, my only real excuse for standing here is that for years and years and years, having taught literally hundreds and hundreds of talmidas in the various seminaries, and hearing again and again and again the same words. When I want to build my home, Rebbitzen Machlis, she is my role model. I've heard this from so many of the talmidas. And just now, I wrote a letter to my students and asked them, what should I talk about? And this was the response I got again and again. What it means to build a Torah home, what it means to build a Jewish home. They went all over Yerushalayim, but they found it exactly they wanted to be. They found it in the home of Rebbitzen Machlis. And I know there's been a Spadim, and before me, the Dolan has spoken. And it occurred to me that there is still a little bit for me to add. Hesped, as the Chasam Sofer said, is Melashon Hefsed, is to feel the loss. And to number one, to try and identify what we have lost. And then, crucially, to ask ourselves what we can learn, the Maisa from what we lost. As I saw on the Aish Torah website, they bring down 10 things that we can learn from Rebbitzen Machlis. And all of them, without exception, will be not mechaber. Each one was a sugya in its own right. Each one has what to talk about. I want to talk about Binod L'Mokim, things that we here in this audience over here can take l'maisa, things that we can learn, and things that we can take on a practical level. The Gemara brings down in Psudas Samach Zayin on base. Famous Gemara, the story of Marukva the Ishtai, the nameless woman. Her name is the wife of Marukva. And they were involved in Chasadim. And one day, they were trying to do Matana B'Seisa, they were trying to give something to a poor person without him knowing. And he caught them. But he only caught them a minute before he could find out who they were. They had enough time to run. And they ran to the nearest place to hide, and they jumped into an oven that was fully on. They jumped into an oven where normal flesh and blood would have turned into, that's it, Kivshin Aish. And they came in, and the awning disappeared, and minutes later, they managed to get out, and Marukva, the great Amayr at Marukva, his feet were burned. But Rebbitzen Okva, the Rebbitzen, the nameless Rebbitzen, went into a fiery furnace and came out untouched. So he was in awe. What was the schus that she had that her husband didn't have? And she explained that in her case, the words that are used in the Gemara is Makarva Hinyasa. The hana that she gives is something that is instant and immediate because she gives food to the ani. Masha'enki, you marukva, your basic chesed is to money. Money means that you have to go and buy the food, cook the food, prepare the food. I have the chesed ready to be done. So I said this over today at the Shabbos table. And my son, David Meir, said, as a joke, Makarva Henyasa, that's her name, right? Henny, that's her name. And how incredible is it? I read Ramesh Piro, and I'd like to add at this point, she had a refuah shalema, he's having an operation on Monday in Moshe ben Rachel. And he asked his Talmidim that we should learn in his chus, so this shtickle Torah should also be in his chus. Ramesh said that we learn from Rebbitzen Okva, you can be a gadol in Torah, but you can also be a gadol in chesed. He also said you can be a gadol in tefillah, because there's no way that you can go into a furnace and come out completely unscathed until you reach a gadlus that is only shayach to the gedolim, the leaders of the generation. This Gemara is the makar for a person being a gadol in chesed, but not just a bitui, not just an expression. She had gadlus in chesed. It reaches a level where nature no longer has a shita over you. You are above nature, you are in a level called a mayim in hateva. Makarva Henyasa. Saying this is the derech malitza. Her name is right there. The koyach of the woman to do chesed, to reach heights that are beyond human comprehension. Makarva Henyasa. At the Vorcha, this week's parasha, we see that both Rivka was the gadol in chesed, and Yitzchak was the gadol in tefillah and Torah, and they're davening for children. The pasuk says, "Vayeser loy." Rashi says, "Loy v'loy la." Ein a day with tefillah tzadik and tzadik and tefillah tzadik and rasha. Says the Sefer Daniel, Rabbi Yol Shechet. What does it mean? Why does Rashi have to add the word loy? Vayesa loy. He should have said v'loy la. He doesn't say loy v'loy la. And he explains that be'etzem al piderach hateva, it should have been law. Kadosh Baruch Hu should have listened to Rivka. Why? Mekarva Henyasa. She was the gadol in chesed. She was, we see this in Chayei Sarah, she was the amud of chesed. Al piderach hateva, Kadosh Baruch Hu should listen to her. It's just that Yitzchak had the Tosefes Maila being tzaddik ben tzaddik, so vayes aloi. But be'etzem it should have been law. So we will know that the first hesped in history was Eishes Chayil. Avram Avinu is masked Sarah Menu, and he says over Eishes Chayil, this was the hesped, and in Eishes Chayil are these crucial words. B'teiras chesed al l'shoinoi. And I want to say that teiras chesed al l'shoinoi, here's the mention to the midah of chesed. Chesed is accompanied with two things. Number one, teiras chesed. You can't just do chesed. Chesed comes with the aloneness. Chesed comes with the Torah. Chesed comes with the deep understanding of how to do chesed. Chesed is not pashut. The Teiras Chesed al L'Shoina. I want to translate the word L'Shoina on her lips. Means the koyach of tefillah. You can't just do Chesed. Chesed without tefillah, asking the Eibush of Siyat D'Shmaya, will always be limited. The real Chesed is Teiras Chesed al L'Shaina. If you want to be a Gadol in Chesed, if you want to be an Eishes Marokko, if you want to be a Rivkei Meinu, it has to come with davening and comes from Tefillah for Atzlacha. So here's my petach. You very kindly mentioned that I've written Svarim and Tefillah. But when I hear the stories, a little bit like Rosh Hashiva said before me, Rav Kaplan, how humiliated he felt. Rav Kaplan mentioned how humiliated he felt when he speaks about her midos and then he's tested. And he's a Rosh Hashiva and he can't follow it through. So since I started hearing these stories, I felt humiliated. I feel I should no longer be teaching Tefillah. It's not for me. I just wanted to thank Rav Ram and the audience for directing me, because on Friday I did not want to give this hesped. I felt there's no makom for me to talk about. And he told me there's two sugyas that need to be emphasized: the sugya of Tefillah and the sugya of Emunah. And here a little bit, I feel I can talk. A man, to my fellow friends, we can talk about this and ask L'maisa. The Teiras Chesed al L'Shaina. The Chachma of Chesed. I got an email, Erev Shabbos, from a Talmid of mine. She heard I was speaking and she wanted to share her story. Some of you know her name is Sola. A big koach. She's now in America. She's one of the many Talmidas that wants to build her home, imitating the Machlis home. And she quotes, "One Friday night, a beloved, regular old drunkard became agitated and began screaming and cursing at others and even at Rabbi Machlis. He was standing by the door screaming. I looked at Rebbitzen Henny Machlis, and she had a big smile on her face. Instead of reacting in a defensive manner, trying to get this curmudgeon out of the way from their 100 plus Shabbos guests, she smiled, raised her arms up, and said to the man, 'Sit, relax, have a drink. You know that you're always welcome here, but listen to the next line. But you also know you have to behave like the mensch that I know that you are.'" See the chacham in that line, like the mensch that I know that you are. We were all shocked when the man went outside for some air, quickly came back, sat quietly for the rest of the evening before they pulled out a cup for him to sleep for the night. No one else could have neutralized the situation with such gentleness and grace as Henny. She did at that moment the way she did everything, with humility, a full heart, and with simcha. It takes chachma. It takes chachma to know how to do chesed. But also, what I want to focus on is the koyach of tefillah. And here, I'm going to read to you the words, and it's almost like a joke for us to hear these things and to know that people in our generation will like this. This is like the Hasidic stories from earlier generations. Every week, like clockwork, the food order arrives on Thursday morning. It's quite a sight. Cases of chickens, all manners of vegetables, and other staples are delivered to the front door. After delivery men leave, the Machlis children, a group of dedicated volunteers, roll up their sleeves and start to work. As Rebbitzen Machlis once shared in an interview, it took her and 3 of her children working together about 8 or 9 hours to cook all the food. Now comes the line. I want to say slowly and with trepidation. While they chop, dice, and stir, they daven that their food should taste good and that their guests be inspired. As Henny explained, Nachman of Rebbitzen said, when you cook, the energy that you use goes into the food. If you cook with anger, you can poison people, but if you cook with joy, you can give them good health. Now this is something that didn't just happen once. This is something that was this the derech that she would talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu while she was preparing food. I was reminded the famous Maimer of Dessler. To introduce it, the Gemara in Sukkah Mentes. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Ma'idach Tzdik, Pia Pasuk B'Chachma, V'Teiras Chesed Al L'Shaina. Yesh Teir Shel Chesed, Yesh Teir Shel Shel Chesed. El Teir L'Shma, Zeh Teir Shel Chesed. Shalei L'Shma, Zeh Teir Shel Chesed. Now I know what I'm saying now is not the Pashup Shot, but you see the word L'Shma is the Oimek of Chesed. Chesed. The chesed that goes back to the Abbas and the Imalas all the way down to Rebbitzen Machlis. Chesed comes by incorporating the Eibush into the chesed, the Shem Shemayim. Rav Dessler brings down, in the name of Yisrael Salanta, that Chanoich, as the Pasuk says, Chanoich, As the pasuk says, "Vayishalech Chanoich es halekim." What was his job? He was a shoemaker. And the Medrash Talpias brings down al kol tzvar v'tzvar, every single stitch. He was miyached yichudim. And his pasha to this thing is al piderach hapshat. That's what he did. He was miyached yichudim. I once heard a shir of what miyached yichudim could really mean from my Rebbe. But Rav Dessler brings down from Yisrael Salam that he wasn't miyached yichudim in the Kabbalistic sense, but rather, quote, al kol tzvar v'tzvar, on every single stitch, he turned to the Kodesh Baruch Hu and said, may these shoes give pleasure to the person that wears it. That's Torah Lishma. This is a shoemaker. Every single stitch should be L'Shem Shemayim, should give pleasure to the person that wears it. There's no question about it. That to sit there with the food, and on every single stir, and every single chop, to say, the Kodesh Baruch Hu, make sure the person that eats it should enjoy it, should be healthy, should be nutritious, should give them simcha. I want to read to you another letter. And I'm excited to say this letter, because this letter was written to me by a Talmido. This is not one of the letters that you know already. So I have something new to share. It's from a girl called Batya. She's in Shirut Leumi. I was there to teach her last year in seminary. And I quote, a couple of years ago I came to Israel with a group for a couple of days. That Shabbos, the group took us to the Machlis family for Shabbos lunch. A rabbi told us that we're about to experience something spectacular and left it at that. That meal was something I'd never experienced before. I never used to squash in my life, never had so many people pushing my chair, never had so much food spilled into my plate, or better yet, my lap. But most of all, I've never loved being so uncomfortable. Every time someone pushed past my chair and almost knocked me flying, I just smiled. How? Because I would look at the Rebbitzen's face and saw her smiling. I saw how much joy the scene gave her. I saw how to her this is Klal Yisrael, Am Yisrael. To her this is Shabbos. I watched every child constantly standing, making sure everyone in the room had all they wanted, girl or boy, no matter their age. I remember just observing the scene and thinking, this is the most special time I've ever seen. So extremely giving. But how are these children okay with their home turning into this every Shabbos, for every meal? Surely it gets a little too much. When the meal was over, a friend and I decided to stop and help them stay tidy up. She's British. She tidies up. We felt it was the least we could do because we couldn't move to help throughout the meal. So we stayed to tidy, then went to thank the Rebbitzen. Me, being who I am, couldn't help but ask her, "What you do is incredible. I've never seen like it. Does it ever get too much? How do you give your children attention on Shabbos? Isn't Shabbos a time for family?" She took my hands and looked me directly in the eye. And with a huge smile told me, and this is the bit I want to share with you. Teres chesed al l'shoina. Does it get too much? Do I stand on my feet cooking for hours? Yes. So I go to the forest and I ask Hashem for strength to continue feeding his children. I ask him to show me that what I'm doing is right for me and my family. Every time I come back from the forest, I feel revived and full of energy. Then I come home to find a needy person at my doorstep, and I know that Hashem is telling me this is what I should be doing. As for my children, we always have our meals earlier with just my family. She writes back, it's something most people don't know. And then we give our children all the attention in the world. And yes, Shabbos is for family. And that is why as a family we open our doors to our family, Am Yisrael. Then she adds, I never felt holiness like that in the presence of anyone before and never since. May her legacy live on to the incredible family she has brought up. This is Batya from Shirut Leumi, describing Rebbitzen Machlis. But there's one line over here that I partially can't deal with. And to picture a woman going into a forest to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for strength to be able to feed his children. The koyach of tefillah, to go to a forest. She wasn't a Breslova. She wasn't that, I don't even know if she was considered herself Hasidish at all. But this is the idea of walking and talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's lo yoman ki yisupar. And so, Rav, thank you for telling me this on Friday, when his sister-in-law was in the ICU after birth. So, In Israel, you don't tell doctors what to do. You're happy if they notice you at all. But here, the doctors told her, you get out. We are working on your daughter. This is after birth. This is a very serious situation. This is a life and death. She was hovering between life and death. Rebbitzen Machlis says, I'm not leaving this room. You don't argue with her. And they let her go to a corner while they're working on her daughter on a life and death situation for 45 minutes. And she's there in the corner, and she's quietly talking to the Eibishter. And once again, just the visual to picture a woman in a corner while her daughter is being worked on, life and death. The 45 minutes is over, and her tefillos are over. Baruch Hashem, it was successful. You see, Teres Chesed al Shayna, what she gives to others, it comes with the koach of tefillah, of incessant tefillah. Another thing about her tefillos, and here again, this is mechayev us in a way that makes me tremble. I just read last week an essay from the Klezberger Rebbe about the koach of tefillah at night. I read this, he has a whole essay in Parshas Chayasar last week. Those of you that see the pamphlets, it's all dedicated to the koach of Torah and tefillah at night. He says, Be'etzem, he says, Le'nivra, Laila el L'shinsa el L'girsa. Night is supposed to sleep, or night is supposed to study Torah, which he says is Torah with tefillah. He says it's supposed to be that way, because if it wasn't, because night, which is the most kaddish of the 24-hour clock, we're coming up to Yaakov Avinu, Parshas Vayetze, he's Bechinas Laila. Laila is the time of Kedusha. The Rishonim have to sleep. So the Klezberger says, Rishonim should sleep. And he goes on to say that the Shinover Rebbe, his great-grandfather, or great-granduncle, said that when they discovered electricity, he said it was a terrible, terrible thing for Klal Yisrael. Because until then, Rishonim could sleep at night because there was nothing to do. Most people could not afford candles or oil wicks. So they went to sleep. They didn't do Averis at night. And the tzaddikim would daven, and the tzaddikim would learn Torah. But now they have electricity. You see how right he was. I remember in high school, I read Reb David Kuba's Zatzal. When you were doing Shavuos night learning, he says, this is the Hamish of nightlife. They have their nightlife, we have our nightlife. Our nightlife is learning up Torah all night. And the Klezberger Shrais Chaydekayim, look what happened to our nights with electricity. The Shinover never allowed electricity into his house for this reason. Now let's go over to Rebbitzen Machlis. What does she do in her nights? So, again, I'm just saying the words. Again, thank you, Ravram, for telling us this. She would regularly stay up all night saying Tehillim. And then go to the Kaisel for nets. Regularly means regularly. So you and I are sleeping, and she's on her own with the Sefer Tehillim. My wife told me the story. She was a Talmida, she was a bas bias bas. Now she's Mrs. Trank, neighbor upstairs. That she once had a complicated, she wanted to give birth. It was the end of the 9th month, and things were not simple. And she meets Rebbitzen Machlis on the stairs on the way and says, it's a terrible month. I really want to give birth. And she said, I'll daven for you. Now stop and think about those words, I'll daven for you. You and I have said this countless times. I'll leave you out of it. But I know I've said many times, I'll daven to you. So what does it mean, I'll daven for you? I put the name into the tefillah. Maybe, if I'm generous, I say a parak of Tehillim. Maybe if I'm generous, I'll even say, I'll dedicate a few Tehillims for you. But that's it. Especially a stranger, if it was my child, if it was a family member, then the whole thing's different. But someone that you just meet, passing a neighbor, say a parak to him. The baby's born. Later on, Mrs. Trank meets Rebbitzen Machlis. Rebbitzen Machlis says, by the way, when was the baby born? And she says, the contraction started in earnest at 6 a.m. She said, I thought so. So, what do you mean I thought so? What do you mean by I thought so? Whatever. He says, what do you mean I thought so? He says, I said Tehillim for you all night long. And at 6 o'clock, I finished saying Tehillim for you. Ki'ilu, she had that clarity that she spent the whole night, she finished saying Tehillim, and now everything's going to be okay. But can you picture the scene of staying up all night 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Okay, I think it's good now. For a neighbor, we daven for our neighbor, they shouldn't bother us. But this is a whole different thing. Just when you say the words, I feel so humble. I'll be telling stories about people that lived in our dar. These are Rebbitzen stories from earlier generations. To stay up all night for a neighbor to have an easy childbirth, there wasn't even a life and death situation. Finally, her emunah, Tiras Chesed al Shemina. The tefillas, the Yeshiva Tzliach, has to come with a mysterious nefesh. So I know these stories have been said over before, but I want you to stop for one moment and to think about what does it mean to be able to do this. At the Levaya, Reb Moshe the son says, he got married to start Koil, and the mother said to him, if you ever make it financially, tell me I'll sell my jewelry. Imam Moshe called out. He says, you forgot you don't have any jewelry. They've all been stolen by the guests over the years, and your diamond ring, you loaned it sometimes 20 years ago, never got it back. This is a different musagim of what it means to trust in the Eibishter, to give everything over to the Eibishter. And how do we hear a financial statement of the Machlis family? The tremendous scales of success cost them $2,500 every Shabbos, a financial load that defied Rabbi Machlis Moda's salary as a teacher, supplemented by donations from well wishes. But unlike most of them, their Adamite faith and Kodesh Baruch Hu and love for the Yid kept them from compromising in their deal. They mortgaged their apartment to the hilt, took out personal and bank loans, and kept on going. I have no idea how to deal with these things. But all it does is it forces us to stop and think, what can this